known for... He pretty much sets the tone for Protoss players who want to play more defensive or macro. I'm not saying he doesn't throw in some all-ins and cheeses, but he's kind of seen as the most stable Protoss. His shield only being broken recently by Cyril, so we'll have to see. He's up against Sue, the second best Zerg we've ever seen in the history of StarCraft. Here on Dreamcatcher. First gateway being laid down. And it is PvZ. Scouting off the gate. This is about as standard as you get. Adding on the assimilator behind. Now, this map is... You're not at as much of a risk of an early attack when you have a smaller ramp next to your nexus like this. On a map like, say, Catalyst or Blue Shift, where there's no ramp leading up to your base, that definitely opens up a lot more opportunities for early Zerg all-ins, like Ling Bane or Roach Ravager, things like that. So you feel a little more comfortable. Now, that's not... I'm not saying that it's impossible to pull off an all-in just because there's a ramp, but there's that little bit extra when it comes to vision and choke points. A bit of mineral mining micro there. While I do have a short video on what that is, the summary is that it doesn't... A mineral patch, the AI of the game reads whether a mineral patch is being mined from. So, whether... It doesn't matter whose worker is mining from it. Mineral patches are not owned by anyone, okay? It's whoever gets to it first. So when the probe mines for a split second, the mineral patch says someone's mining here. And if you don't control your drones to try to mine there, they'll bounce off to another patch, and you'll lose a little bit of mining time if you're the Zerg. So if you don't slip on your build back home, you get a very tiny advantage there. And I do say tiny. We're talking like in maybe even single-digit minerals. Maybe a little more. Assuming you don't mess up your build at all back home, if you do that. And a Stargate right off the bat, even delaying Warp Gate for it, which is pretty standard. Single Adept out. Everything looks like that. If there were a textbook on PvZ right now, and somebody may have written one at some point on some resource, unfortunately people don't read anymore, but if they did, this would be the textbook build. And the Adept scouting sees, now he's going to look for a third. Got the Stargate on the way. Sees the third. Going to scout in. Maybe look for a drone count in order to get an idea of whether there's going to be an all-in or not. Shade all the way to the main. And a cancel? Yes. Just trying to see anything too spicy. Ooh, another pylon in the wall. Which, pylons are definitely more vulnerable than gateways. Baneling Bust could potentially be more effective, but I think Stats is pretty confident. There's no real danger on the way. He's continuing to build up Adepts. That's going to be 3 Adepts coming out. A Phoenix first, in order to scour for Overlords, and Oracle behind. So this is kind of the equivalent of a Terran going for like Hellions and a Viking. The Adepts with the threat to damage drones and also maybe push back a little bit of creep. And the Phoenix to look for Overlords. It's funny how the matchups have kind of looked very similar and how a lot of people open up. Alright. The Adept shading in. He actually commits. I'm a little surprised at that. I guess maybe he wants to get the queens away. That seemed a bit of a YOLO move there, but this was maybe the only opportunity to get in with the Adepts and do damage. Picks up the queen. 6 drone kills. Now, you don't need to do a lot of damage here. And those Adepts were not a huge part. It looks like we're going to see an Archon drop build. A Robo on the way. With 2 gases at the net and a total of 4 gates, so should be... Whoa, whoa, whoa! Okay. Well, it looks like it's going to be an Archon drop, but with a little bit of punch behind it. This is not just to take a third. This is with more aggressive intentions. This is where you have 2 Archons and then warp in some charge slots. And then suddenly, if they don't have an overwhelming amount of roaches or queens in position or all that... What a calculation there on that Oracle as well. That was... I thought it was going to die. Now, the third is going to be something of a placeholder. While stats might want to take the third, and I mean, that's not unrealistic, he's also added these extra gates on so as to be able to put on pressure as well. So, the question will be how much that he wants to commit to attacking, and how much does he want the third. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Well, that was kind of a weird scenario. I think he couldn't see the warp prism warping in there. I'm not 100% sure. But he puts it right over the cliff, so he didn't realize it was going into warp mode, and he can't catch the Archons morphing before they complete. Stats at 45 probes, and he's not making more. That's an important thing to note. The Archon drop coming in, he's continuing to press the issue. The Oracle going to defend against the handful of Lings. This attack does feel a little disjointed, but it's coming together. He's not sure if there's... Well, now he knows about vision on the Crete. And, well, Hydras, there's no roaches here. This is exactly what Stats is looking for. Sue, oh, a lot of Hydras on the high ground. It's... Losing the Warp Prism is losing your lifeline. But you also need to get those warp-ins as close as possible. Looks like he's going to start killing drones. Continuing to chop through. More drones starting to fall. The third base is still building during all this, remember, so if drones fall, even if this attack is held, it can definitely be justified. The Archon's at the back. The Warp Prism's still at full HP, starting to be targeted down by the Hydras. He will have to get out of there, but 15 drones have fallen throughout this. Stats takes a massive supply lead, and now there are no units. Well, that's how you do it. That is a build to copy. And by the way, I'm actually going to go over this real quick. A little bit of a breakdown. I wouldn't be surprised if Sue just taps out right now. Yeah. Okay. Let's actually... This is one to copy. This is really good. Because you can still expand. So, we're gonna skip to the beginning here. Where Stats is going for a pretty standard gate expand. You get the Gateway on 16. You get the Nexus on 20. Well, Gateway 16. Assimilator on 17. Nexus on 20. Cybercore on 20. Second Assimilator on 21. And Pylon on 21 or 22. And then as the Cybercore finishes, Chrono boosting out an Adept, and adding on the Stargate. The Adept is very important, though. The Adept is what gets you information of whether they're going all in, because a Baneling bust will just kill you if you go for a Phoenix first. Like, if you just sit back and do this build, you'll die. This is against a Zerg player who is more going for the drones, not with any aggressive intentions. The Phoenix first to drive away Overlords. Now, this is partially to drive away Overlords for the Warp Prism's potential path. He wants to have the ability later on to drive those Overlords out. The second gate is after the Oracle and the two gases at about 330, 340. We're looking at 34 probes, 47 supply. 2 Adepts coming in as well. And now, once again, this is after establishing it's unlikely there's going to be an all-in. Builds the Robo at the net. I'm not sure if there's a particular reason for that, but as opposed to the main. Bringing everything in. A little bit of harass, not really relying on any additional units. The third gate, well, actually, the second gate was added at the back. He put a pylon at the front, so that's something interesting. And then when you have the gas with the Robo, a Twilight Council, a Twilight builds a little faster than the Robo. Am I right? Am I going to feel dumb? 36 versus 46. Yes. And 4 gates? Well, and then he adds on 2 more. At 44 probes on the dot, I think he accidentally builds 1 more probe. I'm not sure, but 44 probes is max saturation on 2 bases. But you're looking to go up to 6 gates, right around 44 probes. And I believe it was around like 50-something supply. Be around 440. Is where that ends up happening. Some Oracle harass. And not like how many drones were killed? 8 drones throughout all this, so not bad. And losing the Oracle would have been really rough, because then there's really nothing to keep his queens out of position. There's nothing he really has to worry about. And also, he can't defend his third. Going out for the third at the 5-minute mark. The Warp Prism is scouted out. The thing is here, when you see the Warp Prism, you don't, unless you've scouted the main, you don't know how many gates are behind it. It's not a guarantee it's an all-in, and it's not a guarantee it's a macro play. That's just how it works. I love that move, by the way. I wanna point out this move. Look at Sue's vision. He can't see the fact that the War Prism went into phase mode. And if he can't see it, that means... Now, the real danger here is when you're morphing the Archons. The Lings might be able to pick them off, because you can't pick them up until the Archons finish morphing. So that is... Stats using that little high ground there. Keeps him from scouting it for long enough to get the Archons to complete. Of course, the Oracle is also there to protect them. That's why he brought it with it. But that little clever move saved him having to use it so dramatically. And then, now, he hasn't built... He's at 44 probes throughout all this. There were no more probes built. The third base is essentially a placeholder to make it seem... Let's see, yeah, the vision right here is disgusting. It was a placeholder to make it seem like he was actually going for a third. He wasn't. And just a couple more gates are the difference here. Like, he warped in some Zealots back home. He warped in Zealots with the money that he saved by not building more probes, bring them across the map, and then warp in another round. And Sue would have had enough to deal with the Archon drop. He was well prepared. 60 drones and Hydras. The Archon drop itself, he's got it. But suddenly a dozen charge lots come in. So that is definitely a good one. That's relatively easy to copy. Like, all the little micro details aren't that important up until, like, higher Grandmaster. It's just the idea behind it. The idea is you show a third, you look like you're doing the normal harass play, and then you blindside them with a bunch of Zealots backing up your... Whoa. What is happening there? That is a dramatic death. So. And at this point, I mean, the amount of drones that have died is just too ridiculous. And so he's got to tap it out from there.